Thanks for joining me, guys. Thank you very much for your time. If you had a chance to define what is tomorrow, what will it be for you? This is my take, taken by Sir Ken Robinson. Take a look. Do it in a very geeky way. So, it's a mystical land where 99% of all human productivity, motivation, and achievement is stored. So eventually, to be less sarcastic, it means that if I want to do something ambitious, I will delay it for tomorrow. And why it's relevant? It's relevant for us because if you want to tackle our CI/CD system, it's a very tough cookie to crack. Because two things. One of them is, spoiler alert, most of us already have a CI/CD system, so why replace it? It doesn't make any sense. And the second thing, because it's a very, very fundamental part at the core of the DevOps operation, any mistakes that we'll do investing in a new technology in our CI/CD system would be very hard to fix if we have any mistakes, as well as the adoption rates, etc. My name is Elad. I recently, today, joined TerraSky as a tech lead at the city office. And I would like to discuss you about what we can do and explore many ways to solve our problem. So like every day in the office, our type of the development process is a developer pushing its code throughout a pull request into our Git repository, and it makes sense for us. And of course, we have the Jenkins. I don't know if you know, the master changed to a controller as the semantics change. Everyone think about it. And what happened here? So of course, if you're taking some kind of crazy trip into a memory lane, we manage static slaves. And now the nodes, we manage it by ourselves. It's crazy. But a few years ago, this is how we handle our orchestration of job in Jenkins. We already know that if we have, for example, here Java 11, if we want to orchestrate it, we need to have a slave. The slave is going to be some kind of compute that we need to connect to. We'll preload and install all the requirements. But it seems crazy today doing so, no? So it was hilarious in the past what we should do next. And in this case, and it was introduced around 4 years ago, maybe a bit more, the Jenkins Kubernetes plugin as showed. Why it was so important? We invested a lot of compute moving into Kubernetes. Kubernetes, in its nature, it's stateless. You're provisioning compute based on your requirements. But Jenkins, in its main strategy, is static by definition. So how can we solve it? We solved it by the Jenkins Kubernetes plugin. And how we do it? The plugin enabled dynamic scaling of compute and memory resources out of the Kubernetes clusters. How it looks like, as you see in the picture. So we're developing in our dev environment, we're pushing the code. Now we have a webhook that's triggering our Jenkins. And then the Jenkins files describe the information that I want to run in the pipeline. So what's the benefit of it? The benefit of it is that beside of running and managing, again, static scripts and managing by ourselves, we can have one source of truth where it could describe everything that happened inside the pipeline. And I know this is a known practice that we're using daily, and I'm sure most of you are also doing it. And it's our source of truth. But when we go and try to deploy it and run it in some kind of, as we said, Kubernetes pod in the Kubernetes world, we use this Kubernetes template as a YAML file. And as you see here, we can describe the metadata, right? It means the containers that I want to run. So for example, if I want to run and build a Docker, not the Docker, sorry, a Node.js application, I will instance a Docker container with Node.js. And also I need to define the agents to communicate back to the Jenkins. And then I can set up more requirements. So for example, how much memory and CPU I need to consume, and this execution alone. And this is a stateless execution. After you're running this pod, it will be eliminated and back into new resources. And of course, we want to run our pipeline business logic. And how are we going to do it? We're going to do it by running a pipeline, Jenkins pipelines, agents, Kubernetes, label, and load the files. And of course, after doing all the configuration, all the bootstrap, the business logic, the steps that we want to run, building as an NPM package, running lint, sending it maybe to a Docker registry, all of it will be in the logic and the step section. What's happened behind the scenes? So behind the scenes, every time you're using the Kubernetes Jenkins, Kubernetes Jenkins plugin, there are some components behind of it. The runtime, which execute everything, which is the pod itself and every other aspect of the Kubernetes cluster. The spec, which is the metadata and the spec defining any pod that you create in Kubernetes. And of course, you have two more things, which is really important. One of them is a Jenkins agent. And you know how much hassle we need when we need to configure it and communicate back to the master or controller, in our case, when we need to get all the information back about how the execution of the pipeline went, good, bad, and also streaming of the std out and std out, the std error of all the outputs. And of course, we have the Docker and Docker. Why are we using the Docker and Docker? The Docker and Docker is very common practice when you want to run a Dockerized application inside a Docker also container. You want to do it in order to make a separation between the running components. Because if you will not use Docker and Docker, when you will run it on the main Docker itself, then you can crash it and make problems. This is a bit maybe less relevant for today because when it's capsulated under a pod, then if something crashed, the pod will be crashed, but it will not affect any other pod or for this sake, our Kubernetes cluster. So it's a bit less relevant today. And of course, we understand that in a mature company, we have multiple runtime environments, and we have multiple development languages. We have multiple compilers that we're using, different machine architecture like LRM and x86. Each one of them requires some more tweaks in the make files or any configuration files. And it's a bit more complex because right now, even if we have the Jenkins file, and even if we have the best usage of the Kubernetes Jenkins plugin, we still need to manage it in some kind of a repository. For example, our Chef agents, Go, Helm, Java, Node.js, and of course, if you want to manage it, then you want to manage the revisions. And managing the revision means that you have a different directory. And you see where I'm going to. It's a lot of management, and you need to handle it version by version. So it's a good way to continue, but it's still more complex. And of course, when we're talking about Jenkins, we talked about orchestrating the jobs, but what about Jenkins itself? How are we going to install it? Is it magically going to happen? So when you're talking about Jenkins, you can try to manage this cool one-seat driver, seat car driver with a bunch of cool plugins that harmoniously communicate and work with each other. But guys, it's not working. If you have experience with Jenkins, you know that this is going to happen and again and again and again. And this is crazy because you know why it's so crazy? Because at the end, any one of us just excluded a plugin, just bypassed another thing, and if you're talking about managing Jenkins, the Jenkins itself, not just the pipeline, and orchestrate it in a one runtime environment where you can spin up Jenkins with all the plugins, I don't want to manage each plugin lifecycle differently. It's not going to happen if I want to promote some kind of, let's call it a cloud-native deployment of Jenkins itself. So how am I going to do it? I'm going to introduce, and this is something that I think very well adopted in the last 3 years, is that it's the Helm chart of the Jenkins, which is officially supported by the community, and the Jenkins configuration as a code. And what's nice in this plugin, it's enable you to define under one Helm chart all the configuration of the Jenkins itself, the image, how the ingress to expose it to the other world, TLS, etc. But also with the Jenkins configuration of the plugin, you can define all the configuration of the Jenkins. And what's best of it is that the next time you're going to want to go to another company before you're going to manage upgrade the Jenkins files, you have a snapshot. And when you have the snapshot, you will define every plugin, every configuration in a baseline that's stabilized between all the relations of the plugins. So in order to move forward, you just need to install Helm charts, provide these values, YAML files with all the configuration, and wire it together. So it seems like Jenkins rules. So we can drop here, give you more, about 20 minutes to grab something more to eat. And I think we ate enough. But it's not the case. As you see, there is a lot of configurations, there's a lot of things to do, still a lot of manual wiring need to be done, and it's not a cloud-native solution. So why it's so complex? It's so complex because when you need to deep dive into your pipeline, and again, in a previous company, we use this architecture, but still, we had a lot of Groovy code that need to be checked, a lot of libraries that we built on top of the Jenkins files. It's too much. There are much more simpler way to do so. Can we find another way to do it? So to summarize this section, I think that our relation with Jenkins now, it's a bit complicated. Jenkins, and to be frank, has been around for quite a lot of time. But beside of its amazing plugin system, the core of Jenkins didn't change. And depend on multiple plugins and the relation between them to create a very robust solution that, as I said, in the heart of the DevOps operation, it's too risky to do today. So if I want to move forward, let's try using a CNCF and, to be more precise, the continuous delivery foundation. And maybe we have a solution in our landscape. So of course, as I told you, the name of the session was Jenkins in the X Factory show. There was Jenkins 6, and here it is. So this is from the CDF landscape when you're diving into Jenkins 6. And let's try to figure out what good, what not good. Can you hear? Okay, sorry, I'll not be here. So we have an automated CI/CD solution for Kubernetes, which is great. We have a cloud-native pipeline, another one. It's using Tecton. Tecton is a great product to orchestrate your workflow, pipeline workflow. It was ported worked from Knative, and now it's a very popular project. It seems like it's in incubating status. I don't know what it means, but I think it's okay. And it's have a decent amount of stars. Okay, so it seems like a very, very good project. Let's see, before we invest, and as we said, it's very critical, let's see what's happening with it. So it was developed back in time in 2018, and it was introduced by James Shakian, which is, he was one of the main influence and developer of both Groovy and Camel. And it was adopted by Cloudies. It was working and maybe still working in CloudBees, and it was a blast. A year after, it was stabilized, and Jenkins #2 supported more practices on the DevOps, on the CI/CD world, so such as monorepos, extending build tools such Kpack and buildpacks, and it was great. And in 2020, this is where the CD the CD Foundation has established, and it was one of the earliest adopters of this foundation. And by 2021, it was introducing also Jenkins #3. In version 3, it was a major refactoring. It included Tecton, as I showed you, Lighthouse to support Git-based operation, a very robust Jenkins JX CLI, and it was great. And everything was fine. And in my previous company, we even started developing some kind of a prototype application of it. And it was very good. But it was very opinionated. You can see back in the time, and it was like 3 years ago, I opened a ticket. I wanted to implement some kind of a pipeline in a company. And in the company, I want to use not Chart Museum, but Artifactory. When you decide to say I'm opinionated, it means that your framework, your platform is deciding something for you. So of course, over time, there was support, there was a plugin or any other way to extend it, and it was fixed. But over time, when you, we want to use some kind of opinionated framework or platform, you need to understand that if you decide it, you need to embrace it. They have guidelines how to do it, and it should be very good for you. But something happened. As you see here, this is a contributors page of Jenkins 6JX website. And as you can see here, it was great for around 3 years. But I think we all see there is no contributions today. At least not something that can help us as a community, because we want our software to be evolved, especially the software that we put all the money in. And CloudBees, and I don't know how to backtrace it to a specific time, they had a distribution, a managed distribution, which is also very important for us. But now when you go to the website, you see the page say, okay, guys, CloudBees Jenkins distribution is not no longer available. You're all welcome to go to the website, to the GitHub, and work the project, but we do not support it anymore. Guys, we may have a problem. If you look on the Git tickets, okay, let's see how much traffic we have on the issues in GitHub. This is around 20 tickets that was open in 2023. Some of them are really just at high level, some kind of finds a contribution, Jenkins contribution award. Great, I want to see who it is. But it's not active. And I think that the last thing to put here is that when you see the TOC, the Technical Oversight Committee, you can see that they clearly state that we're looking for more contributors. So guys, I think that we have a problem. We spend a lot of time, we spend a lot of money. This is our CI/CD system. What's going to happen now? So I think that at this moment, you're going to say, dude, what are you doing? You're just depressing us. You don't give us any solution. You're just telling us what is wrong. But I think it's important, because I'm going to show you the next big thing. I want to show you what platform will solve all your problem. Make sense? No, I'm not going to do it. Why? Because I'm not going to be here in 3-year times telling you again, I selected another technology, which is amazing, but now, guys, it's all dead. This is what I've done in Yalla DevOps 3 years ago. So shame on me. So I think I want to take another approach when we're talking today. There are success stories, and there are not success stories, to be politically correct. And I think that the next time we're deciding on CI/CD system, instead of selecting a specific technology, let's try to focus on the pinpoints, the decision-making process, what is important for us when we decide our next solution. So we are open source. We love open source. We understand that CSNF is the greatest open source committee that I think ever happened after, of course, the foundation of the Linux Foundation itself. And what you see here, taken from the CSNF website, and it's describing what is project maturity. And of course, crossing the chasm refers, when they presented this slide, is how the open source owners taking the measurements to move from an early adopters of, this is very cool technology, let's use it, to really move into a broader market mainstream customers. And this is a very, very important one. But it's also very important for us to decide if we want to be an early adopters, this, or if we want to take only after it was stabilized, okay? And in our case, it's graduated. But I'm saying graduated. Let's see, what is so amazing in the open source world? Everything is open. You can understand every aspect of decision-making in the CSNF. And this is why they're so great. And as you can see here, they're telling us what is graduated. So graduated means at least 2 big companies, I said big company, but I think 2 major companies that influence on the contribution level. They spend time, company time, influence on the project itself. They may be the owners, but they may be heavy lifting some of the contribution on the project. It could be doing an external auditing of security concept, security auditing of the project itself to make a governance status of the project itself. And also, it's important that it will be used by a real company in a real production solution. It could be a private one, it could be another open source, but it's really, really important. So this is the first lesson. So in my opinion, this is only me. Next time I will decide on a solution for my customers, for my previous company, or for any other company, I will stick to the stable. I will stick to the maturity. And when you're talking about CSNF, it so easily can be disrupted. So please, don't bite off more than you can chew. I think we can spend years understanding what's the landscape of CSNF. And we have another project and another project. I used Knative. There is other projects that are doing the same thing for running serverless computing. Which one I selected? I think that we need to focus on the graduate project. And this is a very important takeaway. When you focus about a graduate, and if you agree with me, I think there are 4 candidates that you need to look for. One of them is the Argo CD. The second one is Jenkins. And Jenkins is a damn good project, and it's okay to stick with it. And of course, when you're talking about orchestration of a pipeline, it could be Tecton, or you could be Argo Workflow, which is another project. And if you're talking about GitOps operation, Argo CD and Flux are very mature projects used in production. They are adapted by Redware, by VMware, by other projects as well as Argo CDs that we discussed. They have a commercial product that's backed by this technology if you don't want to use open source project. And I think that it's not the only way to go. Take a look on this diagram. I think that if you come into a company and you will tell your managers, okay, you have a CI/CD, throw everything away, just put everything new, it's not going to happen. So why not mix and match? So it's totally okay to keep your Jenkins as configured, use Helm charts, use configuration as code, use the Kubernetes plugin. Okay, it's okay to manage your revision of configuration based on the pipeline. It's totally okay. Take the CD part and break it down. And what it may break it down, it's totally okay that your CI/CD will trigger the build, and use GitOps and Argo CD to orchestrate your CD part. So why not combining between the two? So for this, for example, I have an application developed in TypeScript. I'm pushing my code to my GitHub repository. Everything is going to the CI/CD throughout Jenkins, all right? I'm using buildpacks and some other technology. But for here, I can divide and conquer. I can decide that for the CI, I know it's working, it's okay. Maybe I'm going to replace it in the future. Let's divide it, and the CD part can be used by another technology. For example, could be by Argo CD or any other technology that you think. I think it's totally okay to say that we can use commercial products. And this is something that was very, very problematic for me. When I adopted Jenkins 6 in our company and in my previous company, and we just, as I said, rolled back, I think one of the things wasn't just because the lack of support. It's working. Part-time, it's work, part-time, not. But for a mature company, when you do evaluations, when you do anything that's important for managing for a long scale, you need to know if you have a managed service or not. And by Cloudbees deciding to push out from this project, it was very hard. Because even it was saying in the future I will move to a managed service, it's not going to happen. And by taking a very opinionated standalone project, which is currently not under development or basically nothing, it's okay to decide to go with the commercial solutions. So for example, using GitLab, which is doing CI/CD, great CI/CD, and the CD part is implemented by Flux. Or Harness, which is, they just acquired, I think it was a year ago, maybe less, Drone. So now they have a full CI/CD system. Don't be tempted by the buzzword. Don't be tempted by the technology. It's just a technology, it's just a buzzword. Your solution, your requirements is to develop a full CI/CD solution that it works. And CodeFresh, which is giving you, for example, implementation for Argo CD and all Argo workflow, which is very, very important. Also, don't put your time only on technology. And another example is TAP. The Tanzu application platform include also a CI/CD system that can be used as part of your developing your application. AWS has its everything, it's okay. So I think what I want to do, I want to try to summarize it up. I'm not going to tell you which kind of technology to use. What I was trying to tell you is that before you're selecting your next best-in-line project, before you're moving on to another project, think about the maturity of the project. Think about the landscape of CSNF and if you decided to go with the incubation project or go with the fully graduated project. And the same thing is that, the second thing is Jenkins is still live. There is no need to push yourself out of Jenkins and tell you that you have to migrate. It's absolutely okay if you're using the best practices. It's okay to use Jenkins today. It's absolutely okay. And the other solution is that it's okay to use managed solution. And the other point, sorry, is it's okay to use managed solution. It's okay, it's fine. At least if it's not something that you can port off or something that you can change over time, at least you have a company that's backing up and it's okay for a company. I think, in my opinion, it's okay to decide it. And of course, if you want to go fully blown, you can still use Jenkins 6. I think some other people will not agree with me, but this was my take. And guys, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.